Bestie in Freight, where we don't just talk freight, we talk growth, strategy, and mindset behind it all. Today's guest is someone I have admired for a long time. Angela is not just a government contracting expert, she is a powerhouse in the public procurement space with nearly 2 decades of experience across federal, state, and local markets. She has helped countless small businesses break into government work, trained and mentored entrepreneurs in all kinds of industries, and she's especially passionate about helping diverse, underrepresented businesses rise in this space. So, if you ever thought I want to land a government contract but have no idea where to start, this one is for you. Angela, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you accepting my invitation.
Of course, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be able to reach another marketplace that I previously or other folks previously might not be aware of.
Yes. So before we dive in, I always like to start with what originally drew you to government procurement and working with small businesses. Was this always your plan or did the path find you?
So actually, the path found me. I actually fell into government contracting when I'm originally from New England. I moved here from Western Massachusetts back in 2005, and I started with the University of South Carolina as a purchasing specialist, and it just kind of grew from there. I moved from there to a county here in South Carolina, being a procurement officer. So purchased anything from like a couple $100 up to a couple $1 million. And just from there, I kind of just fell space by space into the arena. I went from the University of Massachusetts with their PTAC program, and then most recently with the University of South Carolina with their Apex Accelerator program.
Yes.
Really, working in that arena, I get to do both things of my passion. I love procurement. I love that it's black and white and that you can understand it as long as you follow the rules. But then I get to help small businesses like yours, and it's been fantastic. And I've just been able to enjoy the whole process.
Yeah, that's how we met through Apex Accelerator, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have helped hundreds of businesses through everything from stamp registration to proposal writing. What is one of your favorite success stories? One that really made you say, "This is why I do this."
So I was working with a veteran-owned business located in Charleston, South Carolina, and I was able to kind of teach them the process of going along with, like you said, that starting with the STAM and working them right up through a government contracts, and they were able to land about 5 or 6 government contracts after working with them, and just kind of hand holding the whole way. And honestly, because it's a veteran-owned business, we all love our veterans here, and so to be able to help a veteran small business, it was just so impactful.
Yes,
And then also working with the women-owned small businesses too. I've had several of them that have been able to land smaller contracts, and with the government contracting, sometimes that smaller contract arena is the way to go. So, and being able, like I said, just being able to help folks land that small contract arena.
that's amazing. So that's actually my next question. In your work with small and diverse women-owned businesses, what is the biggest mindset block you see when it comes to going after government contracts?
It's going to be follow up, follow up, follow up. That's going to be the most important thing when you're working. And this is going to be women owned, minority owned, any of them is doing that follow up. Getting those steps, learning from the Apex Accelerator program because it's a great free resource for folks to get in touch with.
Yes, yes,
But then making sure that you're doing what they're telling you to do. As you know, I give homework at the end of every session. So when I start giving that homework, making sure that folks understand you have to follow up. You have to be the one that's going to be doing the outreach, the engagement. And it's uncomfortable for some people to do that. It's uncomfortable for some people to go out and just put themselves out there. But I can tell you, it's going to be worth it when you start landing those contracts.
yes. So you are deeply familiar with portals like SAM.gov, DSDS, and SCGC. For someone brand new, which one
they're going to start their space. That is where they're going to start their whole journey, really.
Yeah.
Help getting that niche, understanding the whole project. So,
Yeah. I truly agree with you because it is not one step process, right? It is like kind of long step process. So, because all of my audience is in logistics space, let's talk about freight and logistics. There is a huge opportunity in this space, especially for small carriers and brokers. What should be the first step for logistics company wanting to get into government contracting?
well, honestly, making sure to getting out and doing that market research to make sure, because there's all sorts of logistics. You have folks that are doing that in between. They're helping with that arrangement. You have folks with heavy, larger pieces of equipment that may be doing logistics,
Yeah,
moving equipment. So getting out there, finding out who's buying what you sell, how do they buy it, how often are they buying it, and where they're buying it through. Because there's plenty of opportunities. As you know, with the bigger logistics, you have your Crowley. Well, then how do I get in with those Crowleys, the folks, because those are the folks who are going to be moving, a good bit of the government contracting with the Army and the military, those surface deployments.
yeah,
So you have to figure out who's buying it, how are they selling it, and how do I network into getting into that space?
yeah,
Going out and finding out if there's a larger company like Crowley that has a diverse background, like they have their supplier diversity portals,
yeah,
registering, going out and Googling, sales folks with those larger companies and seeing if you can connect with them on LinkedIn. Start getting I always say it's like a gentle kick at the door. Or another thing that you've heard me say before is a burr in the fur. Being just a little bit agitating enough where they have to open the door or they got to pull the burr off, but then they're like, oh, there's something here for me to do. So,
yes. I always mention with my students for LinkedIn that even for government contracting, like having a good LinkedIn profile for
mhm.
yourself as a personal brand and also, for your company is so important because LinkedIn is not just finding jobs, you can find manufacturers, you can find
Mhm.
government officers. It is just so important. And I'm glad you mentioned it. So, are there any certificates you would recommend specifically for freight brokers or tracking companies like WSB, 8A, DBA? Which one would you recommend if they have the
Um,
certificate?
right now, I would definitely with is look at the hub zone and the AA set asides,
Mm-hmm.
because they're the only government set asides that you're able to get a direct sole source with. So those, as far as those small business certificates, those are the ones that I would definitely work on getting. Your WOSB as well too. It's not as much in demand, but it could be potentially in demand as well too, especially in the changing climate up in Washington right now.
Yes,
So,
yes,
and I know everybody right now is nervous, but you know, just kind of wait for the dust to settle. Right now, there's a lot of sensationalism going on, so just kind of wait for the dust to settle and see where things kind of take us, because it seems to be changing every day.
yes, I agree. Also, this type of situations doesn't have to stop, to get a certificate because it doesn't hurt to have that certificate, right?
Exactly.
So we hear a lot about subcontracting, and that's very big in logistics space. How realistic it is for a new logistics company to start with subcontracting, and what should they look for in a prime contractor?
I would say it. I always say start small.
Hmm.
I'm not in. A lot of people have heard me say start in the subcontracting space. These bigger companies, they're the ones that are going to be working directly with the military, with a lot of these other agencies. And also, too, and a lot of people don't think about construction. Remember, when a large job is landed, like we have here in South Carolina, we have an I-26 corridor, two different sections. Well, those folks have to have, equipment moved. So if you have a larger company, ABC company that lands that contract, they've got to have that equipment moved back and forth. A perfect opportunity. We have a larger company being built here in South Carolina called Scout Motors. Well, there is, there's demolition that has to be done. There is, transportation has to be done. So getting in and talking to those folks. And remember, when you're doing those subcontracting that work, you can talk to the prime, but there's also going to be government officials out there that, you might have a project manager out there going out and going, okay, SCDOT, how do you do work? How can I become a prime? Or is that something that's realistic to me? So that would be something that I would definitely encourage folks that are looking to get into that subcontracting arena, especially the newer companies, to do. One strategy might be going out and getting your certification. And while you're working on your certification, looking to get into that subcontracting arena. Oh, you're muted, honey. Oh.
What are some common mistakes like freight brokers or logistics companies make trying to win government contract and bid?
I think going too big too fast. They
Mm-hmm.
try to go too big too fast. They try to do as much as possible, and they don't really work on their niche. That to me, that would be one of the big mistakes. Also, not registering in SAM, or going through the proper registration process, whether it's SAM, which is whether it's a local DOT, which is, and another thing too is they don't look local. Folks immediately think, okay, I want to get into the government contract arena. They immediately go straight to SAM. They don't look, hey, let me see what projects are being done locally.
Yeah.
What's right in my backyard. And that's going to be a better opportunity for a lot of new contractors to look directly in their backyard.
Yes. Also, it is a great way to build past performance, right? Starting small and
Exactly.
local. That's amazing that you mentioned it. So you have done everything from market research to strategic planning. What's one underrated tactic a logistics company or maybe any other company can use to find government opportunities before the competition does? Because it is sometimes so competitive.
So, a lot of people have heard me say, that have followed me on other podcasts have heard me say it's an 80-20 race.
Mm-hmm.
80% of your time should be in the market research arena and networking. 20% should be spent responding to solicitations. 80%. Now think about your day. 80% of 8 hours, that is a good bit of time that you should be out trying to figure out what's coming out and who can I get in front of. Because you have an opportunity to influence the solicitation. If you are a vendor or a hub zone, you have an opportunity to, potentially get that as a sole source.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest mistake that I honestly see is people, not getting in front of that market research. They go immediately straight to the solicitation. Now, remember, a lot of times, and this isn't always the case, a lot of times, especially in the federal government, by the time that solicitation comes out, there's somebody they've already have in mind. They've already got somebody in mind that's had an opportunity to influence that solicitation. There should be no reason that that can't be you. Remember what and everybody's heard me say this too that has worked with me. They can't do business with you if they don't know about you. How are they going to be able to do that business with you? They're not going to go out and Google you. And especially if you are looking on the national scale, they're going to go out and Google maybe freight or logistics or transportation. Who's going to come to the top of that list? The well knowns, those Crowleys,
Mm-hmm.
the folks they know and they already have that experience in the government arena. Just because they don't know about you. And I'm glad that you said something about past performance too, because another thing is experience begets experience in the government contracting arena. And people, they don't realize that. They don't have that. How do I get experience if they're looking for experience? Well, the little stuff is going to be able to help you get that experience. Like I said, we're looking in your backyard.
Yes, actually, that is my next question. That for the companies that already work or move freight for commercial customers like shippers and manufacturers, what is the best way to transition into public sector work without getting overwhelmed and getting that past performance?
So I would say, folks that are coming and transitioning from the private side over to the public side,
Uh-huh.
Find out what contracts are in place with those bigger companies that they're already working with. Do they have any past performance? Go use market research tools. Look in SAM to see what contracts were being awarded. Look in USA spending. Look in FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System area. See, look under the transportation. Look for them by name. If you know that you're working for a private company, let's say it's ABC company, will go and pop that name into USA spending and find out, are they getting awarded contracts? They might not be even aware that government contracting is a thing. So you can work with that company because you already have the existing relationship. So if
Yes.
you have that existing relationship, go to them going, hey, did you know that there's a military surface deployment that will be able to potentially use us in the future? And they already have the backing. They've got that financial backing that a lot of these small companies, that's another thing, small companies don't think about that financial backing. One of the things that I would also mention is making sure that you're realistic with remembering how government works. Government's not going to be the same working as private. They have those net 30 payments. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to be sure that you can back up what you're saying you can do by also being able to know that I'm not going to get paid for 30 days, which is even a bigger reason if you're brand new to the market and you don't have that financial arena to work with to start pairing up with these larger primes.
Yes, that's amazing. And also, I have learned that you can also use the past performance of these primary contractors, right? The bigger
That is correct.
companies. Pa- Okay. So, what is the biggest mindset shift a small business owner need to do to win a government contract? It's so confusing sometimes.
It can be confusing. I think if, it's learning the rhythm of government contracting. Again, like I said, I think I already covered one of those mindset shifts is knowing that payments aren't going to be up front. They don't pay until they're done, until that contractor's done, unless there's some sort of progress payment being allowed in there. Getting comfortable networking. I know a lot of folks, they don't like to be in that arena of putting themselves out there and introducing themselves to new people. So either find a business development, there's a B2G, business to government, business development a company that can do that for you, or find somebody that may be on your own staff that would be comfortable doing that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to get up and network with these folks and bid. That's one of the things too, the Apex Accelerators programs. Anybody that's heard me say it, we've got to build a business relationship. A business, you buy from who you know. If I have a quote for a $200,000 contract and I know I only have to get three quotes, okay, well, I just got done talking to Lita, or I just got done talking to John Smith, or whoever it is. Let me go out and call them for a quote. I know that they're new to the market. They might be a lot more hungrier, and they're going to offer me a lot more something a little more competitive.
Yes.
But you have to get in front of that contracting officer. You've got to know who the program manager is. Another thing too is the small business offices. A lot of the federal government, each one of them has their own individual small business office. Getting in and networking with those small business office and having one of the things is called a capability statement, which is a one-page resume about your company. You're going to put that in front of a small business office and say, here I am. And remember, a capability statement, 3 to 5 seconds. They are scanning back and forth all the way down, and they're looking for the keywords that are going to bounce out at them. And, showing that, all right, here I am. I'm a professional company. Anybody's heard me say, printer cartridges out of the back of a car. Nobody wants that guy. They want to make sure that you are a professional company. So.
Yes. So, what should the company really have in place before they even consider bidding on contract? Because even from my experience, when I learned about government contracting, I was not ready. My company was not ready, but I was not aware about all of these, details before jumping in. So, can you please explain for our new logistics companies and freight broker companies, trucking companies, what they have to have in place before they even consider? bidding on contracts?
Making sure that you have all your registers. Well, first of all, knowledge of the marketplace. Honestly, I think, and you know this too, working with me and knowing what's out there and making sure that you're ready to go. Having that knowledge of who's buying, how they're buying, what contracting vehicles they're using. So having that knowledge in the government marketplace is going to be, I would say, priority. Making sure that your registrations, your SAM registration is ready. If you want to bid locally, that you're aware of the contracts and the subcontracts that are available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Networking with the Apex Accelerator, again, free resource. My late father, bless him, he always said cheap is good, free is better. So making sure that you're able to utilize those resources, working with a B2G company, a business to government development company, to take those next steps. One of the things that I did find is a lot of small businesses like yourself, they're a 1 or 2 man show. They don't have time to go out and do that market research. So making sure that they know really what's in front of them. It's not about just getting out and bidding on contracts. It's about getting those, again, and to answer your question, those crucial relationships in place.
Mm-hmm. What is something that you wish more small businesses stop doing when they start bidding?
Oh, there's so many. Getting ahead of yourself, in all seriousness, getting ahead of yourself. Not understanding the marketplace, not understanding the solicitation. Waiting till last minute is like the biggest mistake that you can make. I have had companies that come to me and this thing is due in 3 days. I've never bid a government contract in my entire life. Can you help me? Can it be done? Yes. Does it maybe need a miracle from Lords? Probably. But waiting till last minute to get familiar with that agency, finding out what the agency's forecast looks like. What are their, what's their motivation? What's pushing them? So, and getting that that message. But again, waiting till last minute, even if you get it as a month ahead of time, as soon as you get it, start working on it, even if it's a little bit at a time.
I agree. It happened to me once that we were trying to put the bid and something just the program didn't accept my paperwork and like in
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes bid closed so I couldn't bid it. I have been working on that so long.
I,
Okay.
I was going to say, and that's a lot of wasted time. That's a lot
Yeah.
of wasted manpower for you. I mean, that is, and with a small business, those soft costs, that's money. Time is money for you folks. And
Yes.
so you now, if you waited till last minute, and for all you government contractors out there that are listening, don't assume that the buyer is going to be sitting next to their desk waiting for you to call them because they need help. Don't do that. That's a big no-no.
Yes, yes. It is just when you just start, like I'm talking from my experience, I'm sure experienced folks, they know better, but as a new company who is trying to go into after government contract, it is just so many information, so much confusion, and you get overwhelmed, as you say, and sometimes, you have to get different bids from different companies, and you're not sure if the paperwork is good to submit, so sometimes you just do it in last day and then it is already late kind of if you
Right.
cannot
And
move.
anybody that's worked in the construction arena knows that a lot of these construction guys wait till last minute to put their bids in. So if
Oh,
you're working as a subcontractor, a lot of these guys are waiting. Like I remember when I worked for a particular county that there were people waiting out the door on their phones getting their last minute bids. So, you know, I would never advise for you to wait till last minute. If you know what you're going to bid it.
yeah,
That's gonna, and like you said, making sure your registrations and your paperwork are in order. And the sooner you could submit a bid, the better off you would be.
that's amazing. So, Angela, how important is branding, visibility, and online presence when it comes to being seen as a serious, company for a contractor?
I would say it's extremely important. On a scale of 10, I'd give it an 11. Your branding is going to be important. They want to make sure that you're not that company, like I said, printer cartridges out of the back of a car. They want to make sure that you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
Going to make sure that you're registered in the right places, that you have a LinkedIn profile. As you said, extremely important to make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile, even if it's yours. If it's Angela Seymour's LinkedIn profile,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they can see that you have experience. I would suggest get a company one, but a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're registered and you're wanting to go into the federal government, making sure that you're registered on SAM and making sure that your DSBS or Dynamic Small Business Search profile is up to date too. Making sure that that's complete, that people can find you and that you look like you are a serious company that is going to be working with them and that they can trust you. So I would
Yes.
say branding is extremely important.
Yes, that's what I teach to my students and mentees to have a LinkedIn personal brand, and I focus mostly on personal brand. But as you say, a company brand is important too. But as a person, you drive traffic to your company brand, so it is very important to start with personal brand. So, Angela, again, let's go back with past performance because I have seen a lot of companies that is the most important thing that stops them. If a company has limited past performance or nothing at all, how can they still show they are capable and win?
So, one of the things that we tell when I was working with the Apex Accelerators, one of the things that I would tell my clients is use your own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you have government and, I'm just going to put it out there, IT arena. I worked in the IT space, but now I'm starting my own consulting business or I'm starting my own business. you know, you have that 20 years. It counts. It means that you understand the industry. So any sort of personal experience that you have when you have no past experience, teaming up with folks, teaming agreements, subcontracting, looking to those that have already done it and working with them, attending any sort of industry days, and networking within those rooms. Industry days, most recently Camp Lejeune had a industry day and I had a client love her to death and she said she went and she had an amazing time. It was an opportunity to network with the folks in the room and understand how do these folks work. Because you're talking about you've got people that were there that were from the military that were there. They had invited Coastal Carolina, one of the colleges out there. They invited the SBDC out there.
Mm-hmm.
So getting out and if you see a networking opportunity that you can attend, I would move heaven and earth to make sure that I got there because it's a great way of getting in front of the right person. Or even if it's not the right person, asking if they know who the right person is.
Yes, that's amazing. So, Angela, what separates the companies that talk about getting contracts from the ones that actually win them consistently?
I mean, that's really important. Finding out how are they doing it. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. You've heard me say that. Why reinvent the wheel? There's no reason to do that. Get out there and find out how are they doing it, networking with those folks. And sometimes they have a mentoring program,
Mm-hmm.
and mentoring with those folks. SCORE, which is an SBA sponsored program, it offers a mentor. Mentor protege programs, if you are a small business that has some sort of certification, whether it's your women owned, your AA, your hub zone, being desirable to them, and networking with those folks.
Yes,
And just find, again, no reason to reinvent the wheel. Find out how they've been doing it and working with them.
amazing. Thank you so much, Angela. So let's get some rapid fire question.
Whew, all right, okay.
Yes. So one myth about government contracting you wish everyone would stop believing.
This third party contracting, being that middleman, that it's not necessarily a myth, but all the facts aren't out there about it. So making sure that you understand what's really involved with it. So
Yes. Favorite procurement portal. And yes, you have to pick one.
favorite procurement portal?
Yes.
Sam. I guess Sam.gov. I mean, it's not the easiest, but it is the most effective to get across the country.
Okay. One word to describe working in government procurement field for 19 years.
Rewarding.
I love it. So, if you were not doing this, what would your dream job be?
If I wasn't doing this, oh God. I have 5 dogs, so I would say probably starting a dog rescue. So
Yes.
I'm actually surprised that none of them have started barking
Actually,
yet.
I'm
So
surprised too because every time we have meetings, I
yeah,
have you
all
upstairs
5 of
to
them
work.
start going. So
Yeah,
the biggest baby's right there. So he usually starts it, but not today. Everybody's behaving today. So
that's good. They know that we are doing podcasting, so they
that's
don't
right.
want to
They
interrupt
did it
us.
just for you, Lita. Just for you.
Yes, yes. Well, you can tell them thank you from me.
I
And
will.
thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your heart, and your journey with us. And I know that you just got hired and you just started also your practice. Tell us about us.
So I've actually just started a program called JAS Government Consulting. We are going to be, again, I always strongly emphasize if you could do it for free, go do it for free. Work with your local Apex Accelerator. But when you're ready to take that next step, or you decided you don't have time for it, I'm going to help with that cradle to grave. Instead of that teaching to fish, I'm going to help you go get the fish.
Yes, that's amazing. So you are based out of South Carolina, right, Angela? Can you help
That is,
companies who are not in South Carolina?
I can help anybody across the United States. So again, having that 20 years of experience and that background, I can help anybody across the United States with government contracting because, lucky for us, one of the good things that came out of COVID is teams and having team meetings and being able to know things across the United States. I tell people I know one or two things. So
Yes. I know so many listeners felt seen, heard, and inspired by what you said. And where can people connect with you? LinkedIn, right?
that is correct. Yep, you can come out and find me, Angela Seymour, over on LinkedIn.
Uh-huh. So, is there anything excited you are working on? You mentioned about Colombia.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm also going to be starting a new job with the City of Columbia. So, and my kids will be doing the work with JAS, which it's funny. I have my daughter is 27, and she says she'll tell anybody read a contract. My mom worked in government contracting for 20 years. Make sure you read a contract. So they know they've heard me for 20 years talk about it. So.
That's so funny. Yes, read the contract, especially the small letters,
The
right?
small, all the language, pick one. So,
Yes,
and
yes.
when you don't know, and one of the things I will tell people, and you've heard me say it before, we're not legal advice. Get a lawyer or find out, from whoever you're working with, whether it's an Apex Accelerator, somebody that is in legal, because you represent yourself in that contract. So you are on that personal liability for that contract. So make sure that you understand the terms and the conditions, and when you don't, get a lawyer to figure it out for you.
Yes, thank you so much. To all of our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, leave us a review, or tag us on LinkedIn. And this podcast isn't just about freight, contracts, or government work. It is about building a life and business you are proud of. And remember, whether you're just starting out or you have been in the game for years, your story matters and your voice matters. And Angela, thank you so much for joining for today's episode. And I hope to, have another maybe episode in the nearest
Absolutely.
future.
You tell me when to be there, and I'll be there with bells on, sweetheart.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, reach out to you, or you can throw them over to
Yes,
me,
reach
and I can
out
help
to
them there.
me if you cannot find Angela. I will share her profile. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. You have a great day. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you too. Bye.
Bye.
We did it, Angela.
Yay!
I think we can do
We
it.
did it.
First, I
I hope